What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Davey Sports Podcast. This is episode 171, recording this in the late evening of Friday, January 10th, 2025. So, most of you will probably listen to this on the morning of Saturday, January 11th. Just wanted to talk about a couple of things since the last recording on Monday. First thing I want to talk about is the Aztecs basketball game that they played on Wednesday night against Air Force, where they got off to a slow start. 8 minutes in the game, Air Force was up 20-8. Dutch called a timeout. I don't know what he said to him in the timeout, but it worked because the Aztecs did what they were supposed to do against probably the worst team in the MLS the rest of the way. Outscored the Falcons 59-18 the rest of the way, and ended up winning 67 to 38. Just an absolute blowout. They were 21-point favorites, won by 29. So that's a job well done to dominate those last 32 minutes and win by more than you were favored by. It's the old gambling joke. Good teams win, great teams cover. I don't think that's necessarily true. That's too black and white to me, but still, you covered a spread, got your metrics to go up in a game where they almost basically can't because you're playing such a bad team. So they did manage to, I believe they went up one spot because of the win, and I think they might have moved up a spot or two because other teams lost or something like that. But either way, they did what they needed to do. The star was Nick Boyd, who went off with 16 points, 4 rebounds, 5 steals after he had a pretty quiet game up in Boise where they won despite him not doing much. This kind of goes to show the great thing about this team. Last year it felt like it was a lot of Jaden Ledee, everybody jumping on his back. This year it feels like you get one game it's Nick Boyd, one game it's Miles Bird, another game it's Magoon Guath. Sometimes you get Wayne McKinney has a good game. That's important to winning. Taj DeGorville had a nice game against Boise State, was in double figures. So feels like Farrell Compton's had good games that have helped the team win big time. So it's a lot of different guys can help you win that game, be the main guy on a different night, which is very good. That's, I think, the sign of a really good team. When you have that as opposed to just one guy where everybody jumps on his back. Kind of like what we saw last year with the D, like I said. So good job there. Nothing really else to say. Air Force is pretty bad. They did what they needed to do against them, though. So good job there. Moving on, they got a big game Saturday morning against New Mexico. This game might be tipping off or in progress when you guys listen to this because it's a 10 a.m. Pacific time game. This is a big one. New Mexico's 5-0 in the Mountain West. We all know the Pit's a tough place to play. It's rivalry game. They always get up for this game, and it's in the Pit, so it's going to be tough. On top of the fact that they're 5-0 in the Mountain West right now. Couple advantages that I like for the Aztecs here, though. Number one is that we have a multitude of guys who can guard their leading scorer. That's the 6'2" guard Donovan Dent, averaging 19.3 a game. So that's very helpful. You got a lot of long, athletic guys that can kind of slow him down. And on the defensive end of the floor, I was listening to Jeff Grammer from the Albuquerque Journal. He was on John and Jim today. I was listening to him. He was saying, yeah, Dent and Nelly Joseph Jr. for the Lobos have good individual steal and block stats because he was saying how they were in the top 20 in the conference of both steals and blocks, along with Miles Bird, talking about kind of the star power in the game. But he also noted that New Mexico doesn't play nearly the team defense that the Aztecs do. And that's an understatement because I looked this up. They are allowing 74.8 points per game to their opponents. That's the second worst in the Mountain West, only Fresno State's worst. So New Mexico basically tries to outscore teams. And I always feel like a team like that will struggle against us because of the defense we play. Because I feel like you're not going to be able to just light it up against a defense like ours. And at the same time, this Aztec team, there have been Aztec teams in the past that, struggled to score at times. I don't think this is one of them. I know they didn't have the highest scoring game against Air Force, but, sometimes that just happens. They've shown other games where they've scored plenty too. And bad second half against Utah State shooting the ball. I get it. But for the most part, this team has showed that they can score when they need to. So I really like that matchup for us. Key to this game, I was talking to Maddie about this on text earlier. He was saying, if we get back on defense, in transition, don't let them run the floor and, hold them in check from behind the 3-point line, that we should win this game. So I'm looking to see the Aztecs do that. It would be a big win because go, I said before the Utah State game that if you went 2-1 between Utah State at home, Boise State at Boise, and New Mexico in Albuquerque, that you take it if you go 2-1 in those 3 games. Obviously, you would think win at home and then split the road games. They lost at home, but they have a chance to win both road games. That would put the Aztecs at 2-1 in those 3 games, like I wanted. 3-3 overall in quad one, which is actually pretty important because there's not a lot of opportunities in the Mountain West for these kind of games. In fact, after the New Mexico game Saturday, the only 2 games that are quad one right now are the road games against Nevada and Utah State. And Nevada's like a lower quad one game, I believe. Yeah, they are, because they're 63rd in the net, and you have to be top 75, play a top 75 net team on the road for it to be a quad one game. So that's a low quad one, and that's one of the only 2 quad ones you got left. So they're not a whole lot of opportunities after this New Mexico game. So let's take advantage of this. Just wanted to say those things about the Aztecs real quick. Moving on to the college football playoff semifinals, you had Thursday, you had Notre Dame beat Penn State in a classic. It's the same old Penn State. They just can't, get those big wins against like those top 10 teams to, really get them over the hump. With James Franklin at coach, Drew Aller's kind of an enigma at quarterback. Like, yeah, he's got good tools and he looks really good sometimes, and other times, like you saw against Notre Dame, he just doesn't get it done. I don't know about that guy's future. He has a lot to prove next year. He has to finally, I think, just have the team jump on his back and get them, to a national championship, really, in my opinion. Because there's, as of right now, it's nothing's really changed for Penn State. I mean, you can say, well, they got to the semifinals of the playoff. Yeah, I mean, they beat SMU at home and they won against Boise State on a neutral site. I mean, that's not something those aren't the kind of games they haven't done before. Those games are like on the level of their home wins against Michigan in 2017 and 2019, because Michigan was ranked in like the teens when they beat Michigan in Happy Valley those years. So that's not something new for them. Getting to a national championship game and winning it, beating it, these elite teams is what James Franklin just has not done at Penn State. As far as Notre Dame goes, you got to give them credit. I mean, they battled through adversity. They're very well coached. I mean, I've talked about Marcus Freeman on here last time, I believe it was. Man, he can coach football, and it's amazing too, like how he's made Notre Dame so much more likable than they've been before. Like he's just, the way he handles himself and his team and never makes it about him. Just the way he coaches, he's so legit and great coach, very easy to root for. So, hats off to them for sure. They'll be in the national championship game a week from Monday on the 20th, and they'll be taking on the Ohio State Buckeyes, who beat the Longhorns 28-14. I don't really know what Texas was doing there at the goal line down by 7. They had first and goal at the 1. I don't know why they ran wide, and then they ended up losing a bunch of yards, and then they had a 4th and goal from like the 10, and then Jack Sawyer gets a sack strip, picks it up, runs in for the dagger touchdown. And then Texas, they had just tied the game at 7. There's like 20 seconds, I think, 25 seconds till halftime. They blitz, and Ohio State calls a screen that goes to the house. So, I mean, obviously, you have to give Ohio State credit because, Ryan Day's job was probably on the line going into these playoffs. And whether Ryan Day, you know, fired, suddenly got all this fire in his gut and, were able to really pump these guys up, or they just the kids in that locker room in Ohio State just love Ryan Day that much that they wanted to do everything they could to keep his job. And well, they have. I mean, they're playing the national championship game. Like, his seat was red hot probably going into the playoffs, but he's safe now. I mean, they're playing for a national championship a week from Monday. So, I mean, you gotta think he's safe. Obviously a lot of talent on that team for Ohio State, but I mean, I don't think that Marcus Freeman is going to make the coaching mistakes that I think Sarkisian and the Texas coaching staff made, at the end of the first half, calling that blitz and getting burned on a screen, and then the play calling at the goal line when Texas was down 7 with like 2-3 minutes to go. I mean, I don't think you're going to see that. I don't think Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman, that coaching staff will make those same kind of mistakes. That's why I think that's going to be a very interesting and good game between Notre Dame and Ohio State in the national championship game. Obviously, Ohio State has a lot more talent, but Notre Dame, they find ways to win. They've overcome some adversity. They're legit with Marcus Freeman, so by no means is Ohio State just going to blow them out. That's going to be a good game between those two. Looking forward to that. It's going to be interesting to watch for sure. So just wanted to say that about the national championship game, college football playoffs. Gonna get back more into the Padres and the ownership drama. Because I just wanted to say this too. Maddie and I talked about it a little bit on Monday, as kind of like an initial reaction, and then more comes out, and I think it's just making the brothers look worse, like the more you see, like, because they really I'll just say this. The one thing I think you need to know about this whole thing is that when Sheil announces that the lawsuit, basically, she's tweeting directly to Padres fans, writing directly to Padres fans saying she's doing it for us and Peter and their kids, like directly to us, like she wrote that, like, and who she was addressing. What the brothers have done, they're releasing things through like the website of the trust, and then they're sending it out to AC for AC to tweet it and put it in the newspaper. And the one that came out Monday night, that sounds like ChatGPT wrote it. I mean, I'm dead serious. The one that Matt Seidler wrote on Tuesday, that seems a little bit more legit. And I am going to talk a little bit about that later on here in a sec. But what I want to say for now is that, and I think I want to mention this because so many people are focused on like the proving that he wanted her to take over aspect as the control person, which understandably so, because that's Shield's goal, and a lot of us, myself included, thought she was going to be the one to take over as control person once Kutsenda's year as the interim person is up. But you look into this, there is so much more than just like the control person equation of it that could bring down Matt and Robert Seidler. Because there's some of these other accusations in there are that they're intentionally like lowering assets such as the team so they can like sell it for lesser value amongst each other. And then obviously when you talk about, I want to talk a little bit more about the racist remarks that were supposedly directed at Shield, if those are true. Because I did talk about what happened with Donald Sterling with the Clippers when he got caught saying that about African Americans on TMZ to his mistress. You have to look at, there's a more recent example in the NBA, and Robert Sarver of the Suns. Supposedly he used the N-word in some emails. He got suspended a year. And then I believe the NBA was pressuring, the other owners of the NBA were like angling to get rid of him. So, and then he was gone. Like a year later. There was threats. PayPal reading this thread did not renew its partnership if he remained owner. And then there was somebody wanted a vote to remove him as owner, and then he's like, okay, I'll sell the Suns and Mercury. So Phoenix Mercury, the WNBA team. So he did. So there was enough pressure from the outside to like get him out for doing that. And then of course, baseball's had, a racist owner before. Just read up with Marge Schott and the Cincinnati Reds in the 90s. She got suspended a few times. It's really horrifying, some of the stuff that she said. Don't want to repeat it on here, so you can look that up for yourself. It's very easy to find. But the point is, they can still, and I was not really a fan of them when they had their show on the radio in San Diego. I know a lot of people listen to them. I personally was not much of a fan, but I accidentally started listening to Darren and Marty, doing a live stream on Marty's YouTube channel, um, because I was watching something else, and then that came up, was on my suggested videos, and it came up, and I was on a different browser, and I started listening to them. So I'm like, okay, maybe they'll say something interesting. And then Darren actually said a few interesting things. The first one he said was like, I don't see how MLB is just gonna glance over this and say, okay, sign off, approve as new control person, like they typically do in these situations. And yes, that's right. John Seidler has not been approved by MLB owners yet, and it looks like they're gonna vote on it before the start of spring training. He needs 23 or more votes of 30 to be approved. So basically, if 8 people do not approve of him, he's not the control person, even though he's been appointed as such, pending MLB approval, of course. So I don't really want to know what will happen if. Well, actually, I do want to know what will happen if he's not approved. Like that gets very interesting. And one of the things Darren said was said, I don't see how MLB doesn't step in and do something about this. I mean, because you talk about the control person thing. There's just they're violating the trust by like locking her out of the owner's box and ordering like players, coaches, executives to not talk to her. That doesn't really have anything to do necessarily with the issue of the control person, but it's violating the trust that they're supposed to execute with her being the sole benefactory of Peter's assets, which includes the team, and then you're locking her out of these things. Like that doesn't necessarily have to do with her being the control person, but that's a violation of the trust. So I think people have to consider that too. And let's just say that it does go to a trial or courts, whatever. These brothers, their actions so far have not helped their case at all. And I think that was another interesting point that Darren made in that live stream I was watching too. He said it basically said it was BS that they're parading around saying, oh, we want to honor Peter's legacy, carried on, try and win a World Series, do all we can to win a World Series like Peter did. I mean, this what they've done, that really is not following that at all. I mean, I'm not gonna talk about last year. I let them I let it go last year. I even defended them last year. I was like, Peter died, they lost the TV deal, they thought they were gonna make the playoffs, get playoff revenue, they didn't. This debt service ratio, whatever. Like they have to pull back a year. I defended that last year. But this year, you cut costs, you still sold out every game basically. Made the playoffs, got playoff revenue, like, and you're this close to a World Series. I'll tell you what, if Peter Seidler were alive and his team woke up on the morning of October 9th, as the Padres did, as the betting favorites in Vegas to win the World Series, because you remember waking up the morning of Wednesday, October 9th, they were up 2-1 on the Dodgers in the best of 5 division series. And most people thought whoever won that series was going to end up winning the World Series. And that ended up being true. If Peter Seidler were alive and the Padres were that close, he would be pushing for more to get over the hump. Not this cutting back crap, haven't signed a major league free agent. Lost Kyle Higashioka to Texas. No signs of bringing anybody back. No trades have been made. And we're going to arbitration with our best starting pitcher over $1.5 million. Like, you got to be kidding me. Yeah. Honoring Peter's legacy, though. Yeah. Bunch of BS if you ask me. If Peter Seidler were alive, he would have walked down from the owner's box to give Michael King a new contract after that wild card domination against Atlanta. And instead here, we're fighting over $1.5 million on arbitration, which probably is going to kill any chance that he would resign with us long term after this year. This is unbelievable. Seriously unbelievable. I mean, they're only hurting themselves doing this. I don't think they have a good case at all. I don't understand why people think that they're like some people think they're in the right here. I mean, most people are team Shield like I am, of course, but um yeah, that was another thing Darren said is that because he had connections from when he was like on the radio. He's not anymore, but he was. He said that people who knew Peter well slash were around the team every day couldn't even tell you for sure who these three brothers, John, Matt, and Bob were. Like, and he also thinks that Shield filed the lawsuit now because it's like if it was out there in the public before they voted on John to as a control person. So he thinks that's why she did it now, even though she was trying to keep it private. Like she said, and like I said, like what they've done so far is only hurting their case, against Shield. I mean, now you can't predict what's going to happen, in court or what really is out there. Nobody really knows that. So you can't just be like, oh, well, Shield's going to win, so it doesn't matter. Like, no, like, I want these guys to prove me wrong because I want the team to win. Like, and that's the thing, Matt Seiler did say, like, the relocation thing's laughable, like, which obviously everybody knew, but, at least Matt, address you could tell Matt wrote that. Like the one through the trust website that they released to AC, who released it on Twitter, that looked like it was ChatGPT written. At least Matt Slidler's looked like it was actually written by him. Even though I don't really agree with it. And him and the brothers are kind of sidestepping some of the main accusations that Shield's making against them, which is some of the ones that I just talked about here. Um, that makes me think they don't have that good of a case. And I'm just gonna say it again, like this, I know we don't like Ken Rosenthal for obvious reasons. That guy, oh my god. So he wrote that article with Dennis Lynn in The Athletic this morning, and it was talking about how, like, oh, well, industry sources and people in the organization think she doesn't have a very good case. It's like, well, obviously people in the organization aren't gonna think that, like, because those are people that, the people in the organization who think she doesn't have a good case are people that are gonna lose power if the brothers lose power. So obviously they're gonna think that. And I don't think anybody except Shield and her legal team know like the kind of evidence that's gonna be presented. So to hear like Ken Rosenthal go on foul territory after this too. He was with I think it was Todd Frazier and Scott Braun that he was talking to today. Oh, it was Todd Frazier, and so he's talking about it, and he does that. They don't think her case is very good. And he has that stupid little phony half smile, half smirk, like, but that's why she's filing. So maybe she knows something. That oh, like who are you to know? Nobody really knows, especially least of all you. Like that, get that arrogant little phony smile smirk out of here, dude. Like that is just really unbelievable. Um, and the other thing I'm gonna say last thing I'm gonna say on this, is that I I will support people who think that the best outcome is, you know, the team ends up being sold to somebody else who, has tons and tons of money because, especially in this day and age, because in this day and age, sports teams cost so much that anybody who buys the team is, legit stupid rich. You can't have jokesters like Jeff Morat buying teams anymore in today's dynamic. Like it's just not going to happen. Like every team that gets sold pretty much is getting sold to some mega rich guy who could easily open the checkbook for any player you want to do. So I understand why people want that outcome. I don't What I do have an issue with though is these people who, you know, are just like anti-Shield getting the team. And it really like based off some of these people's comments, and I've seen the feed of some of the general like profile feeds of some people saying this. I think there are just a few idiots who are just racist misogynists who just don't want a minority woman running the team. Like, and I saw somebody say, "Oh, if she was appointed, that would be a DEI hire, and DEI means die." It's like, you guys stop. Like, we gotta stop with that crap. I mean, come on. She was with Peter at games. She was supposedly with Peter at meetings and stuff. Like, she seems like a pretty smart woman. She knows what's going on. Like, can we stop with that? That is such crap. I mean, thankfully, it's only a few idiots, and it's not the general public, thankfully, but that still kind of bothers me. Two more quick things that I want to say before I get out of here. As far as Roki Sasaki goes, I just want to remind people that, like, yeah, like the ownership thing, it can't help. I mean, if you, it can't help. Like, it's a distraction. It can't help. It can only hurt. I'll acknowledge that. Like, and if you don't acknowledge that, you're just biased. But what is true is that there are three things that are still intact for us, no matter who's owning the team, that are potential advantages for us. That is, the Point Loma, pitching lab thing, because, he wants, stuff like that for his development. His mentor, and godfather like figure, Yu Darvish, and, Ruben Niebla, who's like Maddie and I mentioned, have helped, these relievers, guys who hadn't pitched a bunch of innings take that big leap at innings, Lugo and King, of course. And then, so those things are still intact. Like, even with the drama up top, those potential advantages are still uh exist. I'm not gonna make a prediction either way. I don't really have a good feel for where he's gonna go. It's nobody really does. Anybody who does is lying. Yes, I'm throwing some shade at one MLB insider. Anybody who thinks he knows where he's going is just lying. Um, Nobody will know till he actually signs. So the last thing I wanted to do is that last thing I wanted to say before I got off is that there was so the Chargers did like apparently like a caravan where they stopped at like certain places in Southern California for like their playoff rally or whatever. And they one of the stops was somewhere in San Diego. I don't know exactly where. They had like 100, maybe a couple hundred people in a bar, and I got tagged by an LA fan on my NFL San Diego page saying like, "See, real San Diego fans still love the Chargers," kind of thing, which is like, first of all, like, if you're an NFL franchise bragging about 100, possibly a couple hundred people at a bar as proof that you have this great fan base in a region, that's pathetic. Second of all, you people can't have it both ways. You people are like, "Oh, San Diego didn't care about the team, didn't support them," and then turn around and say, "Oh, Chargers still the most popular team in San Diego." It's like, you can't have it both ways, for one. That's one thing I wanted to say. The other is that, okay, great. My thing is like, you can show that now, but where's your evidence? You have to compare it to what it would have looked like if they were still in San Diego. A great example of this, I got two of these, is that a the TV ratings, I've talked about this. It was like a 17 for like households that had the game on, or that had a TV on at the time. Or percentage of how TV households that had the game on in San Diego County was like a 17% or whatever. It was the seventh highest, I think, of all markets for the Chiefs Chargers Sunday night game. And people are like, "Oh, see, look at that rating." But then if you look at Jay Posner's old tweets, the Chargers were frequently like averaging, you know, their average TV rating for like your 10 o'clock game against the Jaguars in Jacksonville, or, a 1 p.m. home game against the Jets or something like that, would, the average, which includes those kind of games, would be like high 20s. I think at one point, late 2000s, the average was in the high 20s, and they'd frequently have games where they were in the 30s. Like, and then for a Sunday night game against division rival, it's only a 17. That just shows you that, you know, yeah, they still got people who root for them here. Nobody's gonna deny that. But it's not like they have this huge fan base here like they used to. And I think the other example I want to use of that is that I don't really talk about my life, my personal life on here, especially not work. But I am gonna say this here because most of you listen to this probably know me in real life anyways, and are really good friends with me in real life anyways, and know that what I do, or family, and then in that case too. But I work with special ed kids at the elementary school that I went to when I was a kid. And when I was a kid, this was like when they had that Chargers had that run when they were in San Diego, late 2000s. We'd have like a big Charger day, like the Friday before all their playoff games. and everyone will wear Charger gear. Teachers, staff will wear it too. I could count on one hand, maybe two hands, not fill up all the second hand, the amount of people wearing Charger gear today. So those are two measures that I have. One of them is kind of anecdotal. That second one I just gave you. The other one, the TV rating. That anybody, that's pretty good, you know, data there. So I just wanted to throw those out there real quick. To close this out. Thanks for listening, guys. I think I'll be back on after the wild card weekend for the NFL. You got Minnesota and the Rams on Monday night. I think after that Minnesota LA Rams game to finish the wild card weekend, I'll be back on here to talk about that and the Aztecs against New Mexico. And Maddie, you'll probably be back with me for that. So thank you so much for listening, guys, and we'll talk soon.